Good evening and welcome to the news. His Majesty the King hosted an iftar banquet at the Royal Court this evening in the presence of His Highness Crown Prince Al Hussein in honor of chieftains and community leaders from the northern towns of Irbid, Mafraq, Jarash and Ajloon. His Majesty also the guests to perform Al-Maghrib prayers. His Majesty the King met here in Amman with Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida to discuss bilateral ties and latest developments in the Middle East. His Majesty and the Japanese minister agreed to increase bilateral cooperation, mainly in the fields of energy and industries. The meeting also dealt with the urgent need for a political solution to the Syria crisis, as well as international efforts to restart Palestinian-Israeli peace talks. His Majesty called for a united international stand to deal with Israel's settlement policies and its continued violations against holy sites in Jerusalem. Prime Minister Abdul also met with the Japanese Foreign Minister and his accompanying delegation. The meeting focused on bilateral ties as well as regional developments. Mansour praised Japan's moderate and open foreign policies and expressed Jordan's appreciation of its efforts in support of Arab issues, namely the Palestinian problem. Foreign and Expatriate Affairs Minister Nasser Judi discussed with the UNHCR High Commissioner for Refugees Antonio Guterres the repercussions of the ongoing conflict in Syria on the refugee situation in neighboring countries, namely on Jordan. Judi said there are around 550,000 Syrian refugees in Jordan being provided with shelter and supporting services and are stretching the kingdom's resources. Judi and Guterres agreed to continue coordination on all matters relating to the Syrian refugees and their needs. UN Secretary of State John Kerry praised the courageous decision of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to return to direct party talks. Speaking before a meeting with the UN Secretary General, Kerry called the diplomatic effort to solve the Middle East conflict the granddaddy of them all. On Syria, Kerry said he had a conversation with Russia's Foreign Minister Lavrov, and the two remain committed to the effort to bring the parties to a Geneva II conference. Kerry was to later meet with Syrian opposition leaders in New York. Meanwhile, Israeli Energy Minister Silvan Shalom said that the U.S.-sponsored peace talks with the Palestinians could begin next Tuesday in Washington. There were no comments by the offices of Abbas or Netanyahu on the statement. Kerry had announced on Friday that the sides were ready for new peace talks after an almost 3-year stalemate. In Syria, a car bomb that exploded on the edge of Damascus killed at least 10 people and wounded more than 60. The Syrian state news agency said terrorists were responsible of the bomb that hit the Asayuf Square in Jaramana. Over to Egypt, 2 Egyptian soldiers were killed and 4 injured by gunmen who opened fire on a military checkpoint near the Sinai town of Sheikh Zayed. 4 other army sites in Sheikh Zayed were also attacked, injuring at least 3 soldiers. Egyptian medical sources say around 20 policemen and soldiers have been killed in Sinai since the ousting of President Mohammed Morsi. And tomorrow will be the scene of rival protests in Egypt as supporters of Morsi and the army prepare to take to the streets. Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called Egyptians to show support for action against violence and terrorism, while the Muslim Brotherhood is also organizing its own marches. The White House, meanwhile, is urging the Egyptian military to exercise maximum restraint and to do its utmost to prevent clashes. The shooting of Tunisian opposition politician Mohamed Brahimi outside his home in Tunis has triggered violent protests against the Islamist-led government in the capital and elsewhere. Brahimi belonged to the secular Arab Nationalist Popular Front Party, whose then leader Shukri Belaid was killed in a similar way on February 6th. The United States condemned the assassination as a cowardly act and called for a thorough investigation to bring those responsible before the courts. In Spain, a 1-minute silence was observed across the country today for the victims of the train accident in Santiago de Compostela. The train accident caused the death of at least 80 people and injured over 130 in one of Europe's worst rail disasters. The immediate cause for the crash is unclear, but one of the train's drivers has been put under formal investigation. Spain's worst train disaster in 40 years has prompted Spain's Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy to declare 3 official days of mourning. Finally, a quick look at the weather. Pleasant weather conditions continue tonight in hilly areas with northwesterly moderate winds and a low of 21 degrees in Amman. Tomorrow, normal summer conditions prevail in hilly areas and hot elsewhere, with highs reaching the low 40s in Aqaba and the Jordan Valley. Winds in Aqaba will be northerly moderate and seas calm. And that's all for tonight. Thanks for watching.